This video is brought to you in part by the patrons of the Lazy Eyebrow, and from the comments and watch time from viewers like you. Thank you! Why, hello YouTube! Greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow to the 4th car in the Legacy Stunticon series, and today we're greeted with the Decepticon with everyone's favorite alt mode, Breakdown. Hold on, this is just Wild Rider in cheap clothing!
But she's got a new...
Spoiler! Not gonna lie, when photos of this first surfaced, I was in hard denial that it was official, thinking someone for a show just did a quick repaint for demonstration purposes of Menasor, and then released those pictures to the world. And then seeing new tooling back here kinda killed that dream, and well, here's what we were left with. So, yeah, it's the same car. Literally the same car, with this section retooled to give him ducts for the radiator, louvers where the back window should be, and 5mm ports for the unibody spoiler. For real? Like 40 seconds in and we're already off to a great start. So as for my thoughts for the car itself, well, I've already covered this, haven't I? So let's recap. So let's talk about what's different then. The colors are actually kinda nice. I know some have had some contention with the white not being creamy enough for their coffee, but I kinda dig it. It's definitely not a brilliant white though, as exemplified by showing him next to Clamp down here. It's still an off-white. Personally, I think it looks really good. Really complements that dark blue that makes up the lower trim. Kinda like the Fans Project version from years ago. They really have done such an exceptional job. It doesn't follow the fender arches like it did the Geewun, but honestly I'm kinda glad it didn't. Wild Rider's vehicle design doesn't really lend itself to that happening, or at least it happening in a good way. I mean, if you like this, you're more than welcome to. I just think it looks weird personally. Anyway, beyond the color, there's everything that's going on back here. It seems that they were allowed to change one part of the vehicle's tooling, so the back of the legs gets to be it. The louvers here are attempting to emulate the back window of the Countach, so that's kinda neat. And it's interesting that they added in the radiator ducts, however small they actually are. It's small, but it helps differentiate it, I guess. And that's kinda it. It's the same car. I mean, one could argue that you can think of Breakdown as a Lamborghini Halpa, which was to the Countach what the Gallardo was to the Murcielago, that being the cheaper option if you wanted to buy a Lamborghini in the late 70s. Nobody wanted one though, and it ended up being a forgotten model in Lamborghini history. As for pretending Breakdown is the Halpa, the cars for it are sorta there. The smaller ducts, the longer front end, etc, etc. You just gotta pretend a lot of the Ferrari cues aren't there, and you can get away with it, I guess. It's just a shame that Breakdown isn't a Countach, though. And evidently, this isn't even the designer's fault.
See, back with one of the Roundtable event coverages last year, I recall someone reporting our Lord and Savior Mark Clonus wanted to make Breakdown a Countach, but Hasbro corporates refused. They insisted that Breakdown be released as a minimum change retool of Wild Rider. Apparently a Countach and a GTB are the same. Time and time again, he kept trying to push it, but they just wouldn't budge. It was getting to the point where they were even hesitant to let him change the torso and head. Thing is though, I went back to find evidence of this and... I can't? The closest thing I could find was the description on his Instagram post confirming it was a corporate decision. Not as comprehensive, I'm afraid, but oh well.
So yeah, thanks head office, deciding that the last project in a 5-man team wasn't worth doing anything to. Thank goodness it was pushed back a whole line so the designers could graciously be given the resources to change one part. So anyway, if you are really hurting for a Countach, you do actually have options. Toy Hacks is a really cost-effective way to bring back some of them Countach vibes. They've included a window sticker to help bring back the classic trapezoidal look, as well as a side window sticker for the multi-tiered window system. They give you the black trapezoid on the roof, in addition to a bunch of other little details that make it feel more at home. To make this option more cost-effective, Toy Hacks is offering 15% off anything in their store with the code THELAZY, so that definitely helps the pocketbook. As for a more drastic option, unfortunately the pins in the windshield and roof make this figure almost impossible to easily tear apart and replace with something as simple as a hood mod, so making this figure a Countach requires replacing nearly half the car, and thankfully Sam's Forge did just that. Popping out 4 screws in the chest allows you to completely replace the hood and roof assembly with something that makes it feel way more Countach than it did before. It's not perfect, mind you, as I find the way all the existing Wild Rider proportions happen make it fall somewhere around here in the uncanny vehicle valley, but that's hardly Sam's fault. Considering what he had to work with, I'd say he really did some stellar work. If you have a 3D printer, this can easily be downloaded and you can print your own, the link of which is in the description or a pinned comment. But if you don't, Sam and I have made arrangements for you to buy the upgrade from my store, thelazyeyebrow.com. I can't promise that the colors will perfectly match. In fact, you can see right now how well they do. But honestly, if you're willing to put up a sunstreaker, I think this is a far cry from that. But anyway, yeah, I really like the mod. It's grown on me despite my automotive eye seeing the proportional changes, and honestly, if they had have made this from scratch with it having to fit into Menasor the way it does, I imagine it would have looked like this anyway. That being said, it sure does help differentiate it from being a Wild Rider clone, and it makes all the cars have their own unique visual flair. So how about vehicle accessories? Well, as mentioned before, he comes with that spoiler, which for vehicle mode is fine, great even. It looks like the proper spoiler you'd find on a Countach, and that's awesome. We also get the rifle thing, which is cast in white and painted in black. Kinda don't understand why the gun is on the mold for the rest of the parts and not on, say, the one for the wheels, but that's what they chose to go with, I guess. What's cool about it, though, is it can go under the stock hood, so that's kinda neat. And that's kinda it. Of course, you could remove the spoiler and chuck it in a port like Wild Rider, but let's not get crazy now. As for size comparison, the Countach mod has the proportions come out to this, which means he scales to the legs of 86 Jazz, Classics B, Gigawatt, and Lighter Freedom. However, if you want to keep it stock and look to the Yelp as the inspiration, the proportions aren't actually that much different, surprisingly. Otherwise, here he is next to the cab over, the truck, the van, the Corvette, the Datsun, and the Lamborghini. So that was vehicle mode. It's not perfect by any stretch. I liked the original mode for Wild Rider, but for breakdown, you can make it work with some mental gymnastics, but obviously a full retool would have been greatly appreciated. So thanks, higher-ups. You guys rock.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
So, transformation. If you have the mod, the only difference is you start by unclipping the roof and swinging it back. Otherwise, it's literally just Wild Rider again. So, cue the footage. Start by opening up the legs and unfolding the back of the car, then close the legs back up. Rotate the waist 180 degrees, and then a new feature in this mold is the added feet, which just need pushed down. Windshield goes up, and hood rotates to the back. New molding allows the hood to separate and splay out if that's your flavor preference. Arms come out and hands are on static ratchet joints. This confused me then, it confuses me now, but whatever. And finally, the chest piece comes forward and head folds out. And you're done. So robot mode. And well, apart from the stock vehicle being the wrong one, the robot kinda pulls it off, much in the same way as Wild Rider did. The legs are painted a dark blue, which is kind of annoying for a reason I'll get into in another video. The legs and arms look halfway decent with the blue hands. The retooled chest I feel looks really, really good, evoking the cartoon's design with the paint and the new molding. And the head, they really did a stellar job translating the cartoon head to plastic. Like, this is breakdown through and through. Honestly, once you step out of vehicle mode into the robot, you sort of forget all the problems from the first mode, and this just comes together really well to be a nice robot. It's a pity about the accessories, though. The gun is the gun, and it looks fine. However, in favor of ditching the second gun, they've given us the unibody spoiler. This plugs into the gun to be this sort of weird combo thing. I don't know, like a boomerang axe gun? Batleth on a stick? I have no idea what they were intending this to be beyond the best they could do given upper micromanagement. They did their best, basically.
Well, their best sucks, and it almost got us killed.
The fix to this was really simple, though. All you have to do is take a saw to the spoiler and segment it. Then you can plug it into the legs, and the clearance allows them to stay there without moving them, or you can just buy the spoiler bits I'm also selling on my website. Basically, you've got options. As for articulation, this is unchanged from Wild Rider, so let's go over that again. Articulation features a head spin, but go too long with that and you're bound to find the unnatural cave-in for looking up. Arms feature about 200 degrees of rotation at the shoulder. Outward movement, bicep swivel, and 100 degrees of elbow. Ratcheted wrist to side curl, the most intense of weights. Full waist rotation, full outward split with complete ankle rotation, which is très bien. And forward ankle movement as well, coupled with hips that go forward and backward, and semi-proportional shin to thigh ratio with 90-degree knees. And you get some thigh rotation in there to boot. And size comparisons. Here he is next to the cab over, the truck, the van, the Corvette, the Datsun, and the Lamborghini, as well as the actual scaled vehicles. So that's breakdown. It's such a shame that upper management completely killed funding for this set just as it was nearing completion, as it was clearly shaping up to the best apology for Combiner Wars they could have made. And then with each release came just a little bit more disappointment over the last, with Breakdown himself being the absolute worst disappointment out of all of them, and with distribution being absolute trash. I mean, Canada is still waiting for Wave 1 RCs to clear out before we get anything new. It's ridiculous. Modifications and upgrades can be made to this guy to fly defiantly in the face of Hasbro's business section, but ultimately you are having to pay more to make it happen when it should have just been like this from the get-go. Heck, he's even a Countach in the Motormaster box art. It's just silly. Well, that was 4 of the cars in Diet format. Now to film the finale in a full review, and at my schedule, it'll probably come out in 2024. Stay tuned! This has been the Lazy Eyebrow.